You've always wondered why there were so few photos of you as a child. At first it seemed innocent, maybe lost in a move, maybe misplaced in old boxes. But as the years passed, the pattern became undeniable. Every birthday, every first word, every milestone moment, missing. Not just absent from albums, but absent from memory. Like someone went back in time and erased the evidence of your existence. And yet, even as the images vanished, the feeling didn't. That pull in your spirit, that knowing deep in your chest that something sacred had been buried. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was intentional. Someone didn't want you to see who you were back then because they feared what you'd remember. There's a reason you were erased, not because you were ordinary, but because you weren't. God placed something rare in you the day you arrived. A frequency, a light, a vibration that cameras couldn't quite capture, but they tried. Someone, somewhere, once held a photo that trembled in their hand. A photo where your eyes looked straight through the lens, not at the person taking it, but at the spirit behind them. And that's when the shift happened. That's when the plan to make you invisible began. But chosen one, you were never meant to be hidden. You were meant to be revealed. And the one who feared that revelation the most was closer than you think. Your sister didn't just steal pictures. She stole pieces of prophecy. She sensed it early, before words, before roles, before rivalry. She saw what no one else did, not just the smile, but the force behind it. She saw that even as a child, you were dangerous to darkness. And so she did what people do when they're afraid. She tried to delete what she couldn't control. You don't remember the moment, but heaven does. The photo in her hand, the trembling, the flame, the whisper that said, if this ever gets seen, everything changes. And she believed it. So she hid it, burned it, buried it, and walked away thinking that would be the end of it. But what's divine can't be destroyed. God doesn't need paper to preserve purpose. What she tried to bury, he backed up in spirit. And now those moments are returning, not through old photo albums, but through dreams, visions, and sudden flashbacks that don't make sense. Yet, you've felt it, haven't you? The stillness before sleep where an image tries to form. The flicker of a memory that doesn't belong to a grown-up, but to a child holding light in their eyes. That's not imagination, that's resurrection. God is bringing back what was stolen, not just the image, but the identity. And this time, no one can hide it, not even her. Long before the world had language for your light, your sister saw it. Not in some divine ceremony, not in a prophecy written in stone, but in a single quiet glance. She saw the curve of your brow, the stillness in your stare, the way your baby fingers seemed to hold more than just innocence. There was something ancient about you, something older than your face. You weren't just a sibling, you were a signal. And she didn't need a preacher or prophet to explain it. Her spirit felt it before her mind could process it. The heaviness of sharing space with someone who wasn't just born, but sent. And it terrified her, because she understood, in the smallest way, what was being asked of you. She could feel it. Even when you couldn't speak, the atmosphere shifted around you. People calmed in your presence. Rooms brightened subtly. Adults paused, not sure why. You didn't cry like other babies. You listened. You studied. And when you laughed, it was the kind that echoed into the bones. She watched all of it, and something in her heart twisted, because even then, she knew you were chosen for something that had nothing to do with being liked or accepted or normal. You were born for disruption, and that kind of destiny always comes with a price. She didn't want to pay it. She tried to rationalize it, told herself it was just coincidence, just a baby, just a photo. But the moment she saw the picture, the one with you staring directly into the lens like you knew what was coming, she cracked. Because in that photo, It wasn't your image that shook her. It was the reflection. Behind your face, behind your smile, there was something staring back. It wasn't light bouncing off your skin. It was prophecy staring through the print, and she couldn't handle it. That's when she knew, if anyone else saw that image, if anyone else felt what she felt, she'd lose control forever. So she made her choice. She didn't hate you. That's what makes this betrayal even harder to name. She didn't hate you. She feared what you would remind her of, her smallness, her doubt, her inability to carry what God handed to you. She thought if she could silence the symbols, erase the evidence, she could delay your calling. She didn't realize she was confirming it, because the enemy doesn't attack the weak. He attacks the rising. And your rise scared her into silence. But God saw it all. Every stolen photo, every deleted file, every flicker of guilt she buried beneath her forced smiles. He saw how she tried to stop what heaven already scheduled, and he waited patiently for the moment when truth would surface and the image she feared would be revealed, not on paper, but in you, in your walk, in your words, in your witness. The photo was never the threat. You are, and that's why she ran. They didn't talk about it, not out loud, but everyone who came near you felt it. Even as a baby, you radiated something that didn't make sense, something ancient, holy, a stillness that hushed chaos, and a quiet power that made people forget what they were about to say. You didn't demand attention. You disrupted energy, not with volume, but with vibration. You didn't have to cry to be heard. You just had to be present. And somehow, that presence made people remember things they thought they'd forgotten. About themselves, about God, about who they once were, before the noise of the world took over. Your aura wasn't normal. It was assignment coded, and heaven didn't hide it, not even for a second. While others were learning how to crawl, your energy was bending time. While others were learning to speak, your silence was already transmitting frequency. It wasn't what you did, it was what you carried. That's why she couldn't take it. Your sister, she stood next to you and felt herself shrinking. She smiled for the family photos, but inside, she was wrestling with a truth she couldn't outrun, that you were different, and the difference was divine. Some people can't handle being close to prophecy, especially when it shares their last name. What she felt wasn't jealousy at first. It was fear of being invisible next to you, of being forgotten in the glow, of watching people look past her to find the source of the warmth. And that fear twisted into something sharper over time, not because you tried to outshine her. You didn't. You weren't even trying to be seen, but you were seen anyway, because light can't help but expose what's around it. And you were born glowing. It wasn't the kind of light you see. It was the kind you feel, the kind that makes lies feel heavy and secrets squirm beneath the skin, the kind that makes people look away without knowing why. You'd walk into a room and conversations would shift. People would straighten up. Old wounds would itch, not because you said anything, but because your presence carried alignment. And alignment always confronts what's out of order. She wanted to turn it off, not the light, but the way it made her feel in comparison. So she tried to contain it, with silence, with jokes, with sudden disapproval wrapped in concern. She tried to cover your glow with shadows of self-doubt, but it didn't work, because what God placed in you was never meant to be dimmed. It wasn't personality, it was presence. It wasn't charisma, it was calling. And no amount of missing photographs could erase the memory your aura left in the room. That's why it's coming back now, stronger than ever. The photos are gone, but the glow remains. And Chosen One, it's starting to trigger everything they tried to forget, especially her. She thought it would work, that if she got rid of the evidence, she could slow down the prophecy, that by removing the photos, she could delay the revelation. But Chosen One, you can't delete what heaven has already declared. God doesn't write your timeline in ink, He writes it in spirit, and spirit doesn't bend to fire, scissors, or silence. When she reached into the box, trembling fingers brushing across the images, she wasn't just holding memories, she was touching moments encoded with divine momentum. She thought she was discarding snapshots, but what she really tried to throw away was proof of the future. Every child has milestones, but yours weren't just first steps and first words. Yours were timestamps of unfolding power. The day you stood up in the crib, the room shook slightly, not physically, but spiritually. The way your gaze lingered on the mirror, as if you saw someone else standing behind your reflection. And the night you refused to sleep, not crying, but wide awake, staring into the darkness with an unblinking calm that unsettled the house. These weren't coincidences, they were markers. And she knew if those moments were captured and remembered, people would start connecting the dots. So she erased the dots. She clipped edges, burned corners, folded timelines until the sequence blurred. And for a while it worked. Family looked back and noticed the gaps, but shrugged. Maybe we just lost them in the move, they said. Maybe the camera broke. Excuses that made sense on the surface. But in the silence, her spirit twisted with the truth. You weren't being erased. You were being prepared. And what she thought she'd buried was only being planted. God let her believe she had control, not to mock her, but to reveal her. Because some stories don't unfold until people think they've won. That's when heaven moves, quietly, suddenly, and always with precision. And now, it's happening. The old timeline she tried to alter are cracking. Dreams she can't explain. Glitches in her memory. Random objects triggering guilt. Her spirit is trembling because even though she covered the photos, she couldn't cover her conscience. And God is pressing rewind, not to punish, but to restore. You were never behind. The delays weren't delays. They were disguises. You were hidden in plain sight because the enemy was watching. If you'd bloomed too soon, you'd have been targeted too early. So God let her believe she'd won. Let her steal the images. Let her feel in control. All while heaven backed up the blueprint in a vault she could never reach. But now that vault is opening, and what she tried to erase is coming back clearer than ever. Not in pictures, but in presence. Not on paper, but in prophecy. You are becoming what she feared most, undeniable. And now, no matter how she tries to rewrite the past, the truth is rewriting her. She thought it was over the moment the flame touched the paper, that once the photos curled into ash, the energy would stop. But what she didn't realize is that prophecy doesn't die when you burn the image, it wakes up. Because the moment she destroyed the physical proof, the spiritual realm began to stir. That night, she couldn't sleep. The air felt thicker, the walls felt closer, and when her eyes finally closed, that's when the dreams began. They weren't nightmares, not at first, more like visions she didn't ask for. Glimpses of you, glowing, but not as a child, as something else, something ageless. In her sleep, she saw you walking through places she'd never been, speaking languages she didn't understand, touching people she'd never met, and everywhere you went, the light followed. People turned toward you like flowers to sun. Even those who hated you couldn't look away. It wasn't your face that haunted her. It was your purpose, the weight of it, the way it moved through dimensions she'd never believed in until that moment. The next night, it happened again. This time, the vision was darker. You stood in a room she recognized, the family home, but older. Dust on the furniture, time out of place, and on the table, there it was. The photo she thought she had burned, untouched, whole. Except now, when she looked at it, your eyes moved. They tracked her, saw her, spoke without speaking, and in the dream, she heard a whisper, "You can't bury light." She woke up gasping, cold sweat, heart pounding, and for the first time, she realized she hadn't destroyed the memory. She had activated the warning. That's the part she never told anyone. The dreams didn't stop. They multiplied, sometimes subtle, a flicker of your face in a crowd, other times terrifying, your voice echoing from behind doors that shouldn't exist, but always the same feeling, exposure, not of you, of her. Every time she closed her eyes, her secrets unraveled, her reasons crumbled, her justifications cracked under the pressure of truth, because deep down, she knew it wasn't about the photo. It was about the light it captured, the light she tried to smother because it reflected what she was afraid to face in herself. And now, even in waking life, the veil between dream and memory is thinning. Glimpses of you in reflections, sudden chills when your name is spoken, shadows of a child she once knew, standing in doorways that don't exist. Her spirit can't rest because the flame she lit didn't burn you, it baptized you. And in doing so, it triggered a countdown in heaven. Because chosen one, those weren't just dreams, they were disclosures. And God is using her sleep to confess what her lips never would. She lit the fire to erase you, but the fire became the altar. And now the dreams won't stop, because your return is already in motion. She thought she was the only one who had the copies, the only one who held the images, the only one with the power to erase the record of your arrival. But heaven keeps backups, not on hard drives, not on paper, in realms untouched by flame or fear. She may have burned the photos, but she couldn't delete the imprint, because every moment you lived, every glance, every breath, every flicker of light in your infant eyes was witnessed by the one who made you, and he doesn't forget. In the spirit, your arrival was documented with precision, not just the date and time, but the energy, the shift, the tremor in the atmosphere when your soul entered this realm. There are records of you in places no human eye can see, scrolls stored in the architecture of eternity. She thought she could interrupt your timeline by burning a few prints, but she didn't realize your destiny wasn't archived in plastic sleeves. It was sealed in heaven's blueprint, backed up in prophecy, secured in the scrollwork of angels who knew this day would come. That's why the evidence is resurfacing. You've been feeling it, haven't you? The random flashes of memory that don't feel like yours, the sudden awareness of a room you shouldn't remember, the sensation that someone, somewhere, kept watching, even when no camera was present. That's not imagination, that's retrieval. Heaven has been restoring the file. The images she tried to destroy are being resent, not as photos, but as spiritual downloads. Truth is returning, not through albums, but through awareness. And this time, the backup isn't going in a box, it's going in you. Because you are the record now, your walk, your eyes, your presence. Everything she tried to hide is being reactivated in your spirit. That's why people stare longer than usual. That's why strangers say they feel like they've met you before. That's why technology flickers when you enter a room. The frequency she tried to suppress has returned, unfiltered, unhindered, undeniable. And it's broadcasting louder than ever. The world is beginning to remember, even if they never saw the original files. And her, she can feel it too. She scrolls through her photos sometimes, not knowing why she's trembling. She opens cloud folders she swore were empty, only to find corrupt files named with your birth date. Her phone glitches when your voice plays in the background, and late at night, her screen goes black for a second longer than it should, just enough to reflect her own face, and yours behind it. That's not coincidence. That's heaven calling up the backup. Because chosen one, God never needed her permission to preserve your truth. He was always 10 steps ahead. While she burned evidence, He was writing legacy. And now the restoration is underway, not just of your story, but of your visibility. She tried to erase your beginning, but heaven has already uploaded your return. She thought memory was something you could control, that if you didn't talk about it, it would stay quiet. That silence could become cement, sealing shut the past. But chosen one, memory is not a prisoner, especially not yours. It's alive, breathing, pulsing beneath the surface of everything. It doesn't wait for permission to speak. It waits for alignment. And now, in this season, the timelines are aligning, and the memory she buried is starting to rise. Not because you forced it, but because God said it's time. It began with whispers, nothing loud, just the sound of your name lingering too long in a sentence. A scent from childhood floating in a room with no explanation. A sudden ache in her chest when she passed a mirror. These weren't coincidences, they were echoes, soft reminders from a God who never forgets. And while she tried to keep her composure, something inside her cracked every time the past called her name. Because the memory won't stay silent anymore. It's not just coming for her sleep, it's creeping into her waking world. You felt it too. That tug at the edges of your thoughts, that chill that runs through your spine when someone brings up old photos, even casually. It's your spirit remembering what your mind was made to forget, because you were shielded, not from pain, but from premature revelation. God let the silence happen because the noise would have crushed you too soon. But now that you've grown into your name, the truth is surfacing, and it won't be quiet anymore. The memory's alive in you. That's why your presence stirs emotions people can't name. That's why certain family members can't hold your gaze. That's why the atmosphere shifts when you enter the room, because something ancient, something once silenced, is speaking again, not in words, in presence, in energy, in remembrance, and it's becoming impossible for her to pretend she doesn't feel it. The memory is no longer a ghost she can outrun. It's a voice, loud, rhythmic, undeniable, thundering beneath the floorboards of her spirit. She doesn't understand how you're still glowing after everything she tried, how you're still rising when she buried the evidence. But that's the part she never grasped. You were never powered by proof. You were powered by promise. And promise doesn't decay. It waits. It watches. And then it returns louder, stronger, and impossible to ignore. The memory she stole is now living in reverse, reassembling itself through divine fragments, in the way you carry yourself, the way you speak with clarity beyond your years, the way you somehow remember what you were never told. You were never supposed to stay hidden. That was her plan, not God's. And now the memory that was silenced is roaring to life, not just to remind you who you were, but to declare who you are. She hears it. You feel it. Heaven unleashed it. You thought you were overlooked, forgotten, pushed to the edges while others stood in the spotlight. But chosen one, you were never abandoned. You were hidden. Hidden not because you were unworthy, but because you were unready. Hidden not as punishment, but as protection. God didn't want the world to see you before the time was right. So while others were performing, you were preserving. While others were being promoted, you were being prepared. And the ones who thought they buried you didn't realize they were participating in a divine concealment strategy. She thought she erased you, but all she did was move you into the shadows of God's keeping. Because what's truly sacred is never put on public display too early. It's covered, guarded, grown in secret. That's what you were, not ignored, but incubated. You were the answer hidden in the background of family photos, the light tucked behind laughter that never reached your eyes. You were always there, but people couldn't see it, not because you weren't glowing, but because God dimmed your exposure on purpose. You were the seed buried in silence, and your sister, she thought her actions kept you hidden. that her hands controlled your visibility, but what she didn't know was that God used her as part of the plan. Her betrayal became your covering. Her deception became your delay, not to harm you, to sharpen you, because being hidden forced you to listen differently, move differently, see through shadows, and feel through walls. While they chased applause, you built discernment. And now you carry a wisdom they can't fabricate, because yours was formed in secret, not manufactured in public. Even then, in the rooms where no one saw you, God did. He watched how you moved without needing attention, how you processed pain without platforms, how you listened, absorbed, discerned, and learned. You became dangerous without anyone realizing it. Because when someone is hidden by heaven, they're not diminished, they're developed. You were being rooted so deeply that when your time came, no storm could shake you. And that time, it's here now. That's why she's panicking, because she realizes what she tried to erase is now rising without her permission. You're no longer hidden in the background, you're walking forward, and not just as a memory, but as a message. The one she tried to bury is becoming the one God is revealing, and there's nothing she can do to stop it. The shadows she kept you in have turned into stages. The corners you were pushed into have become platforms. You are no longer the secret in the family, you are the signal. She doesn't know how it happened, how the one she covered is now the one the world is watching. But chosen one, heaven knew, God hid you in plain sight, and now He's unveiling you with glory no fire can destroy. You didn't understand it then. The loneliness, the pauses, the way things always seemed to come slower for you than they did for everyone else. While others celebrated milestones, you were stuck in waiting rooms that no one else seemed to notice. But chosen one, what looked like delay, was divine protection. God wasn't denying you, He was preserving you. Every moment that felt late was actually perfectly timed. Every door that didn't open wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Because if you had stepped into your calling too soon, the weight of it might have crushed you. He wasn't holding you back, He was holding you steady. You've always been different, not slower, but sacred. While others ran toward everything fast and loud, your path required silence, observation, a patience you didn't choose but were forced to carry. And now you're beginning to see the truth. That delay was your disguise. God hid you in the mundane so the enemy wouldn't target you in the miraculous. The reason your childhood felt out of sync is because heaven had you on a different clock, a higher frequency, a sacred rhythm that didn't match the calendar everyone else followed. She mistook it for weakness. Your sister looked at your stillness and called it lack. She saw your quiet and labeled it insecurity. But that's because she never knew what delay looks like when it's holy. She never realized that divine assignments aren't rushed, they're ripened. While she pushed herself forward, you were being pulled inward, deep into the undercurrents of identity, of discernment, of spiritual strength. That's why your silence was never empty. It was loaded with power, with vision, with preparation. And now that it's time to move, you're not stepping out as a victim. You're stepping out as a vessel. The truth is, some things had to happen late so you wouldn't arrive too early. You had to miss certain moments so you could meet the right ones. You had to be left out so you could be led in, not by people, but by purpose. If God had answered your questions when you were younger, you would have settled for explanations instead of revelation. But now you understand. The delay was divine, and it wasn't just about protecting you, it was about positioning you, because what you're walking into now, you're not just ready for, you're built for. Your sister wanted to move fast, to be seen, known, validated, but fast burns out. And what she didn't realize is that the slow path God put you on wasn't punishment, it was the blueprint. Now you rise with roots, with weight, with clarity, You are not a late bloomer. You are a timed release, a spiritual unveiling. And the same God who marked your delay is now accelerating your destiny. You didn't miss your moment. You are the moment. And heaven delayed everything just to make sure the world wouldn't miss it. There's a shift happening in her now. You can feel it. The nervousness in her voice, the way her hands tremble when you enter the room, the way she avoids eye contact, even in silence. For years, she carried it well. The secret, wrapped it in smiles, buried it beneath forced laughter and family dinners. But now, the weight is cracking her performance. Because what was once manageable has become unbearable. The guilt isn't just a feeling anymore, it's a presence. And it's following her, whispering in places she thought were safe, turning mirrors into messengers, turning your face into reminders she can no longer silence. She thought she could carry it forever, that if she just acted normal, time would wash it away, that if no one ever asked, she'd never have to answer. But chosen one, secrets don't expire, especially not the ones that interfere with prophecy. God allowed her to carry it only until you were strong enough to carry the truth. And now, heaven is forcing confession, not through her words, but through the unraveling, through the way her smile fades a second too soon, through the way she flinches when your name is praised, through the way she watches you like a storm she prayed would never return. But you did return, not loud, not angry, just undeniable. And with every step you take into your own light, her shadows stretch further. She feels the walls closing in, not because you're exposing her, but because her spirit is tired of the silence. She's tried to justify it for years, told herself it wasn't that big, just a few photos, just some memories. But what she stole wasn't paper, it was clarity. She robbed you of moments meant to confirm your calling, and now those moments are echoing back through her body, in sleepless nights, in sudden nausea, in dreams where she's running from a child holding light. She's haunted, not by what she did, but by who you became anyway. Because despite everything she tried, you still rose. Despite the evidence being burned, your presence still ignited the room. That's what terrifies her. Not just your return, but your resilience, and the way God's favor continues to cling to you like breath. She sees it now. The secret she thought she buried has taken root in her own soul, and it's starting to crack her from the inside out. She doesn't know how much longer she can carry it, because carrying something heaven never assigned you to always becomes unbearable. God is speaking to her in ways she can't escape, in numbers, in faces, in moments she can't explain. Her silence is choking her now, and sooner than later, something will give. The secret will surface, not to shame her, but to set you both free. Because what was hidden in shame is about to be revealed in glory. The burden is too heavy now. She's breaking, and in that breaking, the truth is finally finding its voice. It wasn't supposed to be a significant night, just another family gathering, routine smiles, recycled stories, familiar faces circling the same table. But heaven doesn't need spectacle to deliver prophecy. Sometimes it only needs alignment. And on that evening, everything aligned. The table was set, the laughter flowed, the masks were on. But the atmosphere was different, thicker, charged, not with tension, with truth hovering just below the surface. And when you walked into that room, something cracked that had been sealed for years. She saw you, really saw you, and the spell she'd kept alive with silence shattered. Not because you said anything. You didn't need to. Your presence did the speaking. You weren't loud. You didn't try to reclaim anything. You simply stood there in full expression of the truth she tried to suppress, and that was enough. Her eyes locked with yours for less than a second, but in that second, everything unraveled. She couldn't smile her way out of it this time. She couldn't joke or look away fast enough, because your face, your very being, had become the mirror she'd spent her life avoiding. Everyone else saw a reunion. She saw revelation. She tried to eat, but her hands shook, tried to speak, but her voice caught, because nothing she rehearsed could protect her from this moment. Your light had grown stronger than her fear. Your glow filled the room like a confession she didn't give but couldn't contain. She felt it in her bones, the weight of what she'd done, the years of denial, the photos she destroyed, the knowing she silenced. And now it was all rising, uninvited, unstoppable. Even the walls seemed to listen. The stories being told at the table felt thinner, almost transparent, like they couldn't hold weight anymore. The energy shifted. You weren't trying to make a scene. You were simply standing in your wholeness. And that was the most disruptive thing of all, because for the first time, she realized she couldn't control how others saw you anymore. The spell had broken. People looked at you differently now. They felt the gravity in your words, the divine calm in your posture, the undeniable clarity in your eyes. She excused herself halfway through the night, said she wasn't feeling well, but it wasn't her body that ached, it was her conscience. And as she stood alone in the hallway, breathing hard, she finally understood. This was the beginning of the end of her silence, because whatever hold she thought she had over your story had crumbled. You didn't need her apology to rise, but she needed your presence to break. That night didn't end with fireworks. It ended with something far louder, the sound of a generational curse cracking. Because chosen one, when you showed up in truth, the lie could no longer hold. The spell was broken, and nothing will ever be the same again. She thought the danger was in the photos, in the way they captured your stare, froze your presence in time. But she was wrong. It was never the images. It was you. You were always the sign, not just a symbol of something coming, but the proof that something had already begun. Your existence disrupted frequencies. Your laughter shifted timelines. Your very being unsettled the spirits that had ruled quietly for too long. You weren't just born, you were sent, assigned, positioned as a living interruption to everything false that had taken root around you. That's why she panicked. She didn't have the language for it then. She just knew that when you were near, the room felt different, lighter, sharper. The lies felt heavier on her tongue. The air felt thinner in her lungs. You made truth harder to hide. Even as a child, your innocence carried authority. You didn't point out the dysfunction. You embodied the alternative. You didn't expose secrets. You made it harder for them to stay hidden. And without even knowing it, you became the alarm in her spirit. Every time she looked at you, she remembered what she tried to forget, that there was more, and that she had settled for less. But it wasn't about rivalry, it was about reflection, because your life became a mirror, and what she saw in you, peace, light, favor, highlighted what she never cultivated in herself. You were the reminder of what she ran from, not because you judged her. You didn't. You simply stood there, shining, and the shine was too loud, so she tried to mute it, through ridicule, through absence, through erasure. But the light didn't fade. If anything, it grew stronger in the dark. She couldn't explain it. No one could. But every time you entered the room, something shifted, and that wasn't coincidence. That was calling. You didn't just carry God's promise. You were the promise. The sign the family had prayed for but never recognized. The evidence that the cycle was ending. The bridge between brokenness and healing. That's why the enemy tried to silence you before you even understood what was happening. He saw the mark, felt the charge, and sent confusion through the person closest to you. But heaven never forgot. God always knew you were more than just another sibling. You were a signal, a divine flare sent into the timeline to awaken what had fallen asleep. And now, the proof of that is echoing louder than ever. You don't even have to speak. Your presence preaches. Your peace convicts. Your growth condemns every curse that said you'd never make it. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You are the proof. She sees it now, and it breaks her, because what she tried to hide turned out to be the very thing God was using to heal the bloodline. You were never just a person in the story. You were the sign the story was shifting. She thought the negatives were gone, not just the photos, but the energy, the meaning, the memory. But what she didn't know is that heaven assigns guardians to sacred evidence. Not every angel guards temples or battles darkness in open skies. Some are stationed at the edge of forgotten film strips and burned corners of the past, watching over what humans thought they could erase. Because when the proof carries prophecy, it's never truly unprotected. What she held in her hand, trembling, sweating, afraid, wasn't just a strip of film. It was a portal, a fragment of destiny captured in shadow and light. And when she destroyed it, heaven documented the theft. The photos may have burned, but the record didn't. She saw them as threats, black and white echoes of moments too pure to explain. But those negatives weren't static, they were spiritual seeds. And instead of removing them, her fire only released their weight into the atmosphere. That's when the angels stepped in, assigned not to punish her, but to preserve you. Because even what was scorched had sacred value. Even the missing frames held memory, and heaven does not forget what's been touched by glory. You were there, etched into time, not just in pictures, but in pulse. The negatives she thought she ruined began whispering through spirit. The guardians placed over them weren't guarding paper, they were guarding truth. And truth is patient. It doesn't panic when it's hidden. It knows its day is coming. So while she moved on, smiled for photos of her own, told herself it wasn't a big deal, the negatives remained, guarded, untouched in ways she never imagined. And now, they're surfacing, not as photographs, but as flashes, echoes, images that interrupt her peace and blur the borders of her mind. Because prophecy always returns. She feels it now, in moments she can't explain. A sudden panic when she opens old boxes, a shiver when a child's face resembles yours. The dreams, the shadows, the sense that something is watching. She assumes it's guilt, but it's more than that. It's presence, the holy kind, the kind that waits for justice but doesn't demand it, the kind that stands silently beside buried truth until God says, now. And you've been feeling the retrieval too. Pieces of memory falling into place, old sounds, unfamiliar smells, sudden emotions that don't belong to the moment. That's the guarded history waking up inside you. The angels aren't just protecting what was lost, they're delivering what's due. It's time, not for revenge, for revelation. Because chosen one, what was burned has become light, and what was hidden is now holy. The negatives weren't the end, they were the evidence of something deeper than paper. And heaven kept it all. The angels stood watch through the years of silence, and now they're not just guarding anymore, they're revealing. It's not your voice that unsettles her. It's not your posture, your progress, or even your return. It's your eyes, the way they hold her without accusation, yet leave her completely exposed. The way they see through layers she spent years constructing. That's what terrifies her most. Not what you'll say, but what you already know. Because when she looks into your eyes, she doesn't just see the sibling she tried to erase. She sees the version of herself she betrayed. And that reflection is too much to bear. There's a knowing in you now, a quiet, holy recognition. You don't need her confession. You carry the truth in your gaze. It's in the stillness when you look at her, not cold, not cruel, but clear. And that clarity is her undoing, because people can fight words. They can challenge facts. But presence doesn't lie. and your eyes carry the full weight of your memory, even the parts she thought you forgot, especially those. When she looks into you, she sees the unspoken timeline rising between you, the years, the gaps, the moments she stole before you could even claim them. And the worst part, you still love her. That's what wrecks her spirit. Not judgment, not anger, but grace. A grace she can't return because guilt has hardened her hands. And when grace meets guilt, it becomes unbearable. She avoids your eyes, not because they're angry, but because they're healed. And healed eyes are mirrors. They don't just see, they reflect. And in your reflection, she sees a child she buried, a light she tried to dim, and a God she tried to ignore. It didn't used to be this way. There was a time she could look at you and feel powerful, feel safe in the lie. But now you walk with something behind your gaze, a presence, a wisdom, a fire that speaks without sound. You've seen things, not just in life, in spirit. You've been carried through places no one else noticed. You've touched understanding she still runs from. And now your eyes hold that revelation like a lighthouse. She's not afraid you'll attack her. She's afraid you'll forgive her. And in doing so, remove the last excuse she has for the wall she built between you. She can't hide anymore, not from the truth, not from herself, not from the eyes that remember her at the crossroads, holding a photo and choosing fear over faith. Because now, every time she sees you, she's brought back to that moment. And every time your eyes meet hers, something inside her pleads to be freed. But she doesn't know how to let go of the lie that's defined her for so long. Not yet, not fully, but chosen one. Your gaze is melting her armor. Your eyes are unlocking a door she swore she'd never open. They thought restoration would look like getting back what was lost, a return to what was taken, a recovery of old moments. But chosen one, heaven doesn't do rewinds, it does upgrades. When God restores, He doesn't hand you back the stolen pieces. He re-uploads the original design, but this time in divine resolution. What was erased isn't coming back as it was, it's coming back enhanced, elevated, sanctified. Because your story isn't about retrieving burned photos, it's about becoming the version of yourself that was never meant to be forgotten. This is the season where heaven uploads what the enemy tried to delete, not through files or folders, but through sudden clarity, through doors you didn't knock on, through memories that return sharper than they should. What was once vague is becoming vivid. You're beginning to remember what you never saw, because the Spirit is syncing your identity with your origin. And it's not coming from this world. This is heaven's download. You're not healing through guessing, you're healing through revelation. And it's not gradual, it's precise, coded, timed to this exact season. The restoration isn't just emotional, it's prophetic. It's why people from your past are suddenly reaching out with no explanation. Why you're hearing songs you haven't heard since childhood and somehow they feel sacred. Why strangers speak words to you that echo prayers you never told anyone. These aren't coincidences, they're confirmation. Heaven is uploading your timeline, not with events, with understanding. You're seeing now why it had to happen, why the silence, why the isolation, why the delay, because without that, this clarity would have been corrupted. Your sister doesn't know how to process it. She's watching you become what she tried to prevent, and it's breaking her concept of control. You were supposed to be the one who never found the pieces, the one who always wondered, always searched. But now you're not searching, you're receiving. And that shift in posture, from longing to knowing, is the most dangerous thing you've ever carried. Because now, no one can manipulate you with mystery. The questions are being answered by something deeper than conversation. They're being answered by alignment. God is giving it all back, not as it was, but as it was meant to be. The photos are gone, but the purpose remains. And now, the energy of those missing years is returning to you in wisdom, peace, and power. You don't have to dig for it, you just have to stay open. Because the upload is still in progress. Every day, more clarity arrives, more understanding settles, more of you comes online. This isn't just recovery, it's revelation. The restoration of your life isn't about going back, it's about being brought forward, faster, deeper, clearer than anyone expected. You've asked yourself why it began so soon, why the resistance showed up before you even had language, why the atmosphere shifted the moment you entered the world. Chosen one, here is the truth. The war started early because your assignment is generational. You were born as a disruption to what had ruled for too long. And darkness doesn't wait for you to grow. It attacks before you understand, before you can name yourself, before you know how to fight back. Because it fears what you might become if you ever remembered who you are. That's why your childhood felt like a battlefield, not with visible explosions, but with silence, with shame, with missing memories, with a constant sense that something was watching, trying to contain you before you awakened. They weren't afraid of your body, they were afraid of your becoming. And they knew the signs, the way you absorbed energy, the way you made the air feel clean, the way you carried peace like a blade. You didn't have words for it, but the enemy did. You were marked, not for death, but for disruption. And that made you a threat long before you knew how to pray. Your sister became the first line of conflict, not because she was evil, but because she was accessible. She was close. She was afraid. And fear is always a tool in the hands of darkness. She didn't start the war. She just became the one who lit the first match. A stolen photo here, a dismissive comment there, a slow erosion of your identity before you had time to anchor it. That wasn't accidental, that was strategy. The war didn't want to destroy you, it wanted to disorient you. Because confusion delays calling, and delay, when multiplied by time, can kill destiny if you're not careful. But you were protected, even when you didn't know it, even when you were too young to name the attack. God stationed angels around you, not just to defend your body, but to shield your becoming. That's why you still have your softness. That's why your heart didn't turn cold. That's why, despite everything, you can still hear God clearly. Because heaven refused to let your assignment be aborted in infancy. You were always going to rise, but first, you had to survive. And now that you've made it here, the war has shifted, no longer against your identity, but against your influence. The enemy knows he can't stop your glow, but he's terrified of what happens when you share it, when others begin to awaken because they stood next to you. That's why the pressure has been rising lately, why old patterns try to sneak back in. It's desperation, because you weren't just born with light, you were born to ignite. And chosen one, now that you know this, you've already won. This was never just about baby photos. It was never just about childhood silence, missing memories, or a sister's secret. It was about what those things represented, a bloodline bound by shame, cycles, and generational cover-ups that hoped no one would ask the wrong questions. But chosen one, you were the question. And now, you're the answer. Your life was the reveal waiting to happen. The moment in the family line where silence would be interrupted, secrets would be exposed, and curses would finally collapse under the weight of light. You were born to be the interruption. And now that the truth is here, the curse cannot continue. The moment she tried to erase you was the moment the curse tried to preserve itself, because generational patterns don't break without resistance. They fight to stay hidden. They camouflage themselves in tradition, in trauma, in false loyalty. And she thought she was protecting the family by hiding you. But what she didn't realize was this: The only protection the family ever needed was in the light you carried. You were the medicine, the breakthrough, the answer to the prayer someone whispered generations ago when they begged God to let the next child be different. You were the response. This reveal, the one happening now, is not just emotional. It's spiritual warfare coming to a close. Because with every word that's come to light, every dream that returned, every crack in her mask, something ancient has been breaking. The shadows are shrinking, the spell is undone, and your presence, fully alive, fully seen, has become the trumpet that shakes the ground the lie stood on. Your sister feels it in her bones, the heaviness, the unraveling, the ache of a truth deferred for too long. But even now, it's not about punishing her. It's about freeing you both, because grace doesn't just expose, it heals. And what once separated you is now standing in the open, no longer weaponized, no longer hidden. This is the moment the curse loses its grip, not because someone shouted, but because someone finally saw. The light in your eyes, the peace in your presence, the undeniable evidence that what they tried to kill lived. And now the curse has nowhere left to hide. You've become the living reveal, the final glitch in the system, the one thing darkness could never replicate, a healed heart that remembers everything and still chooses light. That's the power that breaks bloodline bondage. Not revenge, not bitterness, but redemption carried in open hands. The kind of freedom that echoes backward through time, touching the parts of the past that still ache. Chosen one, the curse is broken. And the photo that was meant to erase you, God replaced it with a mirror. And in that reflection, the entire family line will finally see who you are.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.